A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Before we get into our conversation about ICE, let me just give you a little update, a bit of breaking news, something of a victory that you might want to celebrate. A bunch of organisations have risen to defend a gospel presence at the Melbourne Royal Show, including the team at Answers in Genesis. And I'll tell you what Answers in Genesis are saying. They're saying because thousands of Christians stood up, the Melbourne Royal Show has now issued a formal retraction and apology for removing the Good News booth from the 2025 show. Now, the Good News booth is now being reinstated. You might be relieved. You might even remember we were talking about this just yesterday with Family Voice Australia too, who took on some advocacy to try and turn things around. Well, the team at Answers in Genesis are saying this is a powerful reminder that when Christians speak with one voice, the culture is forced to listen and sharing the gospel can continue. We thank God for his favour and we thank you for refusing to stay silent. This win is proof that freedom must be defended and that faithful people can make a real difference. The gospel belongs in the public square, and we will all know that Australia is stronger when people of faith can participate fully and without discrimination. And now they are saying, here's an important dimension here, because having a win can get all sorts of different emotions going. But the Answers in Genesis team are saying, now is the time to respond with grace. AIG has written a clear and respectful thank you message that you can send to the show organisers. Now, it takes less than a minute, and you can see the letter and send a copy when you visit the Answers in Genesis website at answersingenesis.org.au. I won't tell you what's in that letter. You can check it out on the website answersingenesis.org.au. Turning our attention today to drug addiction, and especially the drug known as ICE. Methamphetamine and amphetamine are typically known as speed or crystal and ice. And around 1.6 million people in Australia have used it in their lifetime. Well, two very special guests today. Andrea Simmons is the founder and CEO of the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign. She has her own story to tell, as does Mel Myors, who's also with us today, who's on the team organising an upcoming conference. It's a special event called the Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference. Andrea, a special welcome back to you.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's lovely to see you again.
And Mel, welcome along to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, people aged 40 and over are the most likely to ever have used methamphetamine and amphetamine. That's a bit of a shock to some people who think that drug use is just for those teenage and early 20s years when you're in some sort of rebellion. But Andrea, people over 40, they're likely to experiment.
Absolutely. This drug does not discriminate. It is just rampant in our society, not just in Australia but globally. And it's attacking people from teenagers to 70 years old. We've had lawyers and barristers and people of, with degrees and careers like falling into this, what seems to be just a little bit of a smoke, and they end up entrapped by the enemy.
Now, you've got your own story to tell, and you've told that a number of times here, but I wonder if you've got a brief, in a nutshell, refresher on your own story, your own, I guess you could say it, demise into using ice.
Well, Neil, I was 40 years old. I never really dabbled in drugs, drank socially. I was not a Christian. Somebody went through a divorce and somebody introduced me to a bit of a smoke that would help me relax. Not knowing any different or what it was at the time. This is like 14 years ago, and I decided to have a little bit of a puff and, thinking it's not going to do much harm. And that first puff took me into an entrapment of a 2-year spiral into hell. A spiral that I lost my health, my life, my children. I actually lost myself, and I got to a point where I actually died on this drug, Neil, and that was when things changed for me, because I had a supernatural encounter with God that changed my life forever.
Wow, this spiritual dimension that some people, very secularized in their thinking, don't like to talk about, but an encounter with God in a moment when you're at your lowest point. How do you describe that?
Grace. It was just, I'm just so grateful that God saved me. It was a horrific place to be, and I had no idea how real God was. And I cried out, in the depths of going into the blackness, and I knew I was dying, and just cried out, if there is a God, forgive me for what I've become and don't leave me here. And 3 days later, I came back, and God had just changed me. He delivered me from this addiction, and it's the hardest thing to actually not have any cravings or any detox out of. But I was absolutely set free.
And you were a successful businesswoman, and post that traumatic experience and an encounter with God, you set out to form the Australian Anti-Ice campaign. How do things look now around Australia with the campaign?
Oh, Neil, God is just moving rampantly around Australia and also internationally. So we're training people in Pakistan at the moment. We've ministered in Africa to a orphanage there. But we have teams all over Australia, and God is just moving through our workers, through people that have been through addiction, to help those that are entrapped. We're working heavily in the Youth Detention Centre. They've just opened another remand centre in Wacol Prison, and the youth crime has just gone through the roof, and they're telling us that 83% of these kids going into Youth Detention Centre are on ice. So they've brought us in to help, and God is moving. We are having so much success, and we're helping these kids see that there is hope and that there is life. They just need to choose Jesus.
83% of kids going into youth detention are ice users / addicts, because it doesn't take much to go from, as you describe, a use to a level of addiction. And, I wonder if we can just spend a moment here just talking about how bad this is. When I did a little research, thoughts around rapid weight loss, suppressed appetite, severe dental problems, tooth decay, gum disease, skin issues, sores from scratching, and a sensation of bugs crawling under the skin. When you're telling people, and I guess when people are addicted to ice, they already know what's going on, but when you're explaining to people who don't really understand, are some of those sorts of symptoms real?
They are real, but the person that's in addiction doesn't see it. So that people outside see it. And, some people have sores, other people don't have the sores externally, but inside it's destroying their neurological pathways. It's not letting them use their frontal lobe of their brain to make logic, rational decisions. And this person is in flight or fight mode, in fear for their life, and entrapped in this, vortex of hell that never ends. That's the only way I can explain it. So some of the superficial, like the external things that people sometimes can't see yet, it's definitely happening inside the body.
Wow. Mel Myors is with us in the studio too. Mel, you're organising this beautifully broken and restored conference, but I wonder if you've got a moment just to share your story.
Absolutely. I love what Andrea does with AAIC. Excuse me. Got a cough. Okay. My story, I have to put in dot point. I used ice from the age 21 to 35, so 14 years. Drugs itself from age 13 to 35. So I was born in domestic violence. I was then married into domestic violence and now co-parenting in domestic violence. So it really didn't feel like there was a break in trauma. But God has been great, and there's been breakthrough, and just the spiritual stuff that's coming out of it is just amazing. And so it doesn't really feel like trauma. It's very weird to explain. I was homeless at the age of 12 because of sexual assault with my brother. Ended up becoming the bully because I got bullied at school, was abused at home. So I decided to be the perpetrator because I didn't want to hurt anymore. And that's when the drugs came in that numbed the feelings of I don't want to be feeling any of this. And I didn't want to be hurt anymore. I wanted to be in control of my environment. So then I became a prostitute as well. So that was age 18 to 35. I also went into the bikie background with a motorcycle club from the age of 21 to 35. So that was a very colourful lifestyle. I also became a sexual sadist. So I ended up hurting women because I just was hurt by my mother and my sister. And then I gave my life to God in 2018. Praise God. I was on my way to go to the brothel to work, and I was on my hands and knees in the dormitory where I was homeless. They let me stay there for a couple of months till I found my feet. And I said, God, if you're real, I give this all to you. And I remember my husband at the time, he said he was going to watch the kids while I went to the brothel. And he's like, how do you know God's going to do this? Like, he doesn't believe in God. And I said, I'm just going to trust him. I have no idea what trust or faith was then. And I have been following God ever since. So it's been 8 years, and he's just taken me on this new journey of the trauma conference and with AAIC.
I'm absolutely gobsmacked. You gave us the dot point version, and there's so much in your life, and the traumatizing effect of domestic violence, and then the need to actually take control. And that was a trigger for taking ice, because when you're on ice, you feel a little bit like Superwoman. Is that the way that it works? And, courage comes because you're on a drug?
Yes, it just numbs the awful feelings that we call awful, but they're actually really good feelings now that being clean. But when you're in that space of, I don't want to feel pain, I don't want to deal with that, I've went through it. So that's why taking drugs was a falsehood of confidence. I'm strong, I'm empowered, I've got this. And so it gives people a false sense of security.
Well, these two women we have in the studio, if that's not testimony to the transformation that can come with that godly spiritual encounter when someone turns to God and says, I'm not sure really what I'm doing. God, if you're there, I need your help right now. And now they've formed what is called the Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference. And Mel, you've been very much a part of the coordination. I guess you're really quite gifted by way of administration to be able to organise a conference like this. How did this all happen? Because we might have sort of said, she's sort of on the fringe, not much hope that she's ever going to be doing something really fabulous. And all of a sudden, you're doing something, you want to change the world.
God's just amazing. I remember sitting with him because of all the different aspects of the trauma that I had. And it didn't fit in to just do addiction. It didn't fit in just to do prostitution. And it didn't fit in with just TV. And I'm said to the Lord one day, Lord, I want to help everyone, male, female, youth, kids. And I want it to be about all different types of trauma. And it was about 2 months before that, and it was my prayers was answered. And I remember a lady who came along and she said, would you do a workshop for trauma survivors? And it was really funny. In my journey of 8 years, I tried discipleship hubs, starting this, starting that. Nobody would turn up. So when I'm no, I won't do a workshop, but I'll do a conference. And for some reason, this whole God confidence, I call it, was I can take that on. And so when I took that on, God just everything was amazing. It came to $300 only for 3 days. Speakers will speak for free. We have this secular people coming in not knowing it's Christians run by Christians. And so they get to hear the gospel. And it's just amazing. And and the vision God said to me was, I would like you to help people come out of trauma by letting them learn how to take the steps forward and take accountability for the healing, but see me through it. He said, most of these people will come from spiritual abuse, hurt from the church, and I want them to see me, not see religion. He said, by these teachings, everyone will be set free. And I'm like, oh. And I took it to Andrea, and she had the same vision, and she said, yep, let's do it.
Andrea, now I'm pretty confident that Mel doesn't have some special degree in social work and counselling, and I don't think you do either. But with stories like yours, there's a dimension that you don't get if doing a Google search, I'm looking for a counsellor who can help me make sense of what's going on. This divine dimension, this transformation that can happen. I wonder if you've got any thoughts here. Is there a process in that transformation? Because having that encounter, I guess there's things that we, in Christian circles, we'll call it repentance, and there's something of humility and submission to God, a recognition of what's gone on. Is there something in a process that you describe, not being the official psychological counsellor, but you've got your story to tell? What's the process you help people work through?
Usually people come to us when they want change. They've had enough. Or a family member might contact us and say, my son, my daughter, they're at the end of themselves. They can't do this anymore. Neil, we can't change people, So there's no particular formula. But, you can't minister on what you haven't been through is what I've learned over the last 12 years walking with the Lord. And so when we come to sit with these people that are entrapped in hell, we share our testimony. The power of the testimony sets the captive free. And in that, God does incredible things. And then we just walk with them. We have a buddy system. So people like myself and Mel, we come alongside them and we help them introduce them to the Bible. We bring them to church. We get Christian counsellors and therapists, trauma therapists, to help them through some of the underlying issues, to actually work out their own salvation. They've got to clean out the soul realm, which is the mind and emotions. And we just walk with them. Every person's different, so there's different needs. Sometimes they're homeless, sometimes they're stuck in domestic violence. So the buddy comes along and just walks with that person until they are set free. And Jesus is the answer, because he will start working inside them. And it's radical to watch, Neil, somebody be transformed within months. Like Jesus just frees people again and again.
So there's a clinical dimension, but it's by referral, and there are those people who do have their professional qualifications to bring to the circumstance when someone's going through this. But the thing that really sets people free, that gives them a new meaning, a new purpose for their life, a new empowerment, is going to be that, you might even call it a radical, godly, divine encounter. And we might have to wait until after the news to be able to talk about how you think that will work at this new conference. But the Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference is coming up on the 31st of July and goes through until Saturday the 2nd of August. Now, it's going to be on the Gold Coast. It might be a really good excuse to have a holiday and be a part of this conference. July 31st through Saturday 2nd of August, called the Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference. Mel, just quickly here, as Andrea is saying, you can't force people to be there. The people that are coming to this event have got some connection. Either they are dealing with their own addiction or their family members who are trying to cope with what's going on with some very, very destructive things that are happening in their family members. The sort of people you're anticipating coming?
Yes. So part of the vision that God gave me is that it's more of a movement that will be going to community to community. So what we do, we had it at Bayside Redlands last year. This year will be the Gold Coast in a couple of weeks. And what we do is we go out and do outreach to DV places, shelters, addiction, and that's the people we try to reach. We've actually got, as you were talking to Andrea about the different types of counselling people, we actually, in my healing journey and Andrea's healing journey, we have psychologists, psychiatrists, we have doctors that actually are coming to speak and taking time out for free to do it just because they want to see people set free. So I think the word is just getting out. I'm certain that God's going to do a stirring in the spirit of people's hearts to say, go now. I'll make a way. You just get there.
Why don't we take a call as we launch into this part of our conversation? Kaz is in Whyalla in South Australia. Hello, Kaz. Thanks for waiting patiently.
No worries. Hello. How you going, Mel and Andrea?
Hello.
They're going good. Hey, what are your thoughts here, Kaz?
Andrea, I used to have Whyalla Ripples. I think you may know the group. That was a support group for parents and loved ones going through their loved ones' addiction.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much. I thought you might do. I just wanted to say you guys are amazing. Like what you're doing is just, through your lived experiencing, you're helping others, and that's exactly what happened in my situation with my daughter. And we just come alongside the parents in a different way. And I just think you're amazing.
Thank you so much, Kaz. I think Jesus is amazing. He's working through us all, and you guys are you're doing an incredible job supporting these family members. Well done.
I'm not doing it anymore. I just suffered a lot of burnout, and I ended up giving it up. But I still help people, just through talking to them. But what I learned back then was just to educate ourselves, and that's exactly what you're doing. And it's priceless, the education that we have in our hands, and we can cope a little bit better. We have better coping mechanisms.
Well, that's right, Kaz. We've got to lean on each other. That's I believe how Jesus has brought us all together to help one another, that is by touching base and reaching out, getting that support you need. Whether you're a family member or somebody entrapped in addiction, reach out, because there's always somebody that has been there that is. We're happy to walk with you, and it is because there's so much need out there, Kaz. Sometimes people can burn out, so we're uniting forces with other organisations like Faith and Discipleship, and we're coming together for a time like this to help make a difference to our community.
Kaz, when you're sharing, you've been a bit burned out by the process, and you've been a part of a support group, but, when you're a family member and there's somebody in your family who's going through this, how hard is it? Have you got a little description? I mean, this is like a 24-hour-a-day anxiety that you must have. How does the burnout look?
I think it consumes you. And especially when you're in that role of helping other people, it just, like you're trying to help your loved one, but, you learn that, it's up to them to get that help. But you just need to educate yourself. But, burnout was a lot for me because I just tried to help everybody, and it just got too much. And, so just worry about burnout and, how you deal with you yourself. But God came into my life through all my burnt out stuff. So it was amazing, what he did for me.
And I think the key there with what Australian Anti-Ice Campaign are doing is each one help one. So our buddy system, we train people all over Australia to come, put their hand up to help one person. And then it doesn't become too much because, as you know, Kaz, it's crazy when they're in addiction,
Yeah,
Kaz, I want to thank you for taking that few moments, because you've made a great contribution, and thanks for telling us about your family experience. God's grace and blessing on you from this time forward. But Kaz, thanks so much for calling in and telling us about your situation there in Whyalla. 1-800-316-316. To join in our conversation, Ruth sent a text, would like to know, can you give the details of the conference being discussed? Is it coming up or has it passed? Well, it's coming up. It's going to be on Coming up, let me just see, I've got my dates all in here, the 31st of July. So we're just less than 2 weeks away from a start, and across those few days through until Saturday the 2nd of August, it's called the Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference. And you can get the details at the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign.org.au, and there's probably a website too. I'll have to just check on that for the other organisation called Faith and Discipleship. And so just quickly, Mel, is there a Faith and Discipleship website that people can get details from too?
So we've got a Facebook page called Faith and Discipleship, and it's also on the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign Facebook page as well.
Wonderful. I hope that's informative. I'll be saying that again before the end of our conversation too. Let's take another call, an anonymous caller this time. Hello, welcome along.
Hi. There's a suppressed miracle solution. If you simply wear an eye patch, it eliminates any addiction urge, whether drugs, alcohol, gambling, caffeine, any addiction or any other mental agitation. Any stress or anxiety or grief or depression.
Sounds like a very significant alternative treatment here. So just, I mean, I don't know, is there something, I'll get the ladies, but, wearing an eye patch, what does it do to you?
Oh, well, it's to do with neural circuitry, you see, because, balance normally depends on having both eyes open, but if you cover one eye, that changes your brain circuits. So it skips past a lot of circuits that carry anxiety and agitation.
It's an interesting dimension. Andrea, is there any weight to that? Thoughts?
Well, Neil, there's always things that we don't know. I've personally never experienced that. I haven't heard of it, but thank you so much for that contribution, and we will look into that.
All right, an eye patch that might help. Did you have something to add to that, Mel?
No, I concur with Andrea. There's definitely different symptoms that everyone experiences and different treatments that work for one that might not work for the other. And I'm really interested in learning more of what people can use to help them.
All right. Thanks so much to that caller. 1-800-316-316. You can join in our conversation. If you've got a text, you can send us one too on 0447 488 316. Hey, let's talk about this conference because clearly there's an interest from listeners. Quick question though, is it going to be live streamed? Do we know, Mel?
Yes, so it'll be a live stream on Facebook. It's actually called Live Streaming Beautifully Broken and Restored. Just write in live streaming first and it'll come up and we'll be just going live and it'll still stay there. The recording will be there for a couple of days too.
And back to Andrea, when one of our callers there was talking about, walking alongside and just how significant that is, the burnout factor that's involved. There's going to be need not only for family members. You've been talking about buddies. Are people happy to put their hand up, particularly if they've gone through some ice addiction themselves? They know that a buddy is necessary in these cases?
Neil, absolutely. People that have gone through addiction and that have been managed to come out, which realistically, statistically, it's 2% of people that have been entrapped in ice addiction that actually get set free. So people that make it out, they don't want to see anybody else entrapped in that hell, and they're very eager to come back and help someone create that pathway into recovery. So, but anybody can help because we have training available to everybody. Jesus called us to, disciple men and help them create that pathway in life, and if one person can put their hand up, for instance, my pastor is a buddy. He's never been through addiction, but his compassion to seeing people that are broken in that state has urged him to be a buddy, and he's walking with a couple of people at the moment and helping them create that pathway into recovery.
So in a church environment, and not every ice addict is going to be turning up in church on Sunday, they might have a reluctance, but there's going to be people in church who know someone who is an ice addict, just putting your hand up and saying, hey, I'll be your buddy if you need one, not forcing yourself on people, but people readily putting their hand up to say yes. And I know you speak widely. You've had some good success. People are putting their hand up all the time saying, I want to be a buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm doing at the moment is inviting churches where I can come in and share a bit of my testimony and open an opportunity for people in their congregation to be trained to help people in their community. So we have two things to help with that. One is SAMI Brief, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Intervention, which is supplied to us by George Patricky, who's been in the industry for over 40 years working in this sector. And it's a 2-hour online training. So you can know how to have a conversation with somebody in addiction and how to do a cost versus the benefits. And then we have a whole care team and support team to help. If you were helping somebody, we would help you with resources and support to be able to help that person in addiction.
What I can hear is that there's very little training required to really make you an authority on how to be a buddy and walk alongside someone who is endeavouring to get free from their addiction to ice. Hey, 1-800-316-316 to join the conversation. Let's take another call. Matthew is in Queensland. Hey, Matthew.
Good morning. How are we?
Doing good. What are your thoughts?
I've actually got a question for the ladies, and it comes from, look, I've never been addicted to, sort of hard drugs. I was a smoker for well over 20 years, and I've battled alcohol in my younger years as well. But do you find, I had to come to a place where, like, I wanted to be sort of free of it. Is there a sort of telltale way? Because I've seen people that they say, oh, yeah, I want to be free, and there's just there's no outward sort of sign, or is there a way to spot those that are genuine and those that are just saying to appease people in your experience?
Okay, Andrea, I guess you probably get pretty good at discerning people's motives and hearts. What are your thoughts here for Matthew?
Well, people talk about people getting to the end of themselves, and not having a way out. We usually find people come to us when they are either going to prison, stuck in a mental health hospital, or a family member, there's been so much DV, or they can no longer live where they were living, they're homeless, and they've come to a point where I can't do this anymore. So there's a lot of different ways to discern that. Somebody that's been through it can usually tell whether that person's serious or not. And I think it's learning, getting the skill set to learn where the cycle of addiction happens, what contemplation stage looks like, and having the tools to be able to help that person make the right choices. So that's what our SAMI Brief training provides. So you'll be able to recognise that.
Matthew, is that helpful?
It is a little bit, yeah, because, like I say, they say there's a big difference between, I suppose what we call addiction to illicit drugs and, things like, tobacco and alcohol and some of the stuff that's a little bit more, I suppose, socially acceptable, you could say. But it is, yes, because I've got friends that are going through this stuff, and it's just, that's great. Thank you.
Please reach out for help, Matthew, because we have a whole care team of social workers and psychologists that can support you in what you're doing, supporting your friend.
Wonderful stuff, Matthew. Thank you so much for your call. And our talkback line remains open on 1-800-316-316. Now, the conference is going to be live streamed on Facebook. And for listeners, you might want to be a part of that. You might even want to jot that down. Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference. There's going to be a number of speakers. You're tackling all sorts of things. There's one topic that I think, Mel, are you the one who's in charge of this? Barbecuing sacred cows. Is that going to lock out anyone who's a Hindu here? Anyway, thoughts here on what are you going to be talking about?
Oh, no, that particular subject is Ron Hutchinson from Fringe Church. He's amazing, and it's for spiritual trauma in our church. So he's so funny. You're going to love coming to hear his teaching. We also have Andrea here, who's going to talk on freedom from addiction. George Pariki, he'll talk on what drives human behaviour, communication and conflict resolution skills. We also have for Broken Brilliant. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's actually a DV organisation, and they are a counsellor and I didn't write it down.
The thing is, though, what can go wrong in your life when everything in your life takes a downward spiral and you're reaching for something that is going to perhaps make you feel better or help you be able to cope, and you don't realise that what you're going to be taking is something that will completely destroy you. This is the sort of thing, isn't it, Andrea? This is your story. This is Mel's story too. What you reach for, we might even sometimes reflect on those sorts of things in a faith context and say there are some idols that you can choose alternative to the way we want to sort of lean in and gain that level of peace and comfort from God, but we reach for other things. This is easy to for you to be able to talk about. So your thoughts here, Andrea?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people that reach for substance to help cope with life, they don't have God. They don't know God. Like, I knew there was, everybody knows there's the God, but I didn't know him, and I didn't realize how real he is and how much he loves us and how we can do life with him. And so I don't know how I did it before, and it was turning to alcohol, it was turning to drugs, it was turning to sex, it was trying to find that companion that can help you do life, right? But those things are going to still kill and destroy your life. And God's just so waiting to reach those people. So that's why we do what we do.
And the interesting dimension here, where you bring God into a circumstance like this, Mel, is it may be affecting one member of a family. Everybody is affected. But if one member can find a breakthrough, even a divine encounter, that opens up a whole family to a transforming gospel that can actually not only transform an individual who's been the addict, but it can transform whole families.
It's absolutely true. There's always one trailblazer that God will reach through that family to break generations. If I could share just something very short, my children, for example, when I was married, when I became a Christian, the father became a Satanist, and so their kids weren't allowed to speak about God. And when we came out of it, my children now can talk about God to their father. He doesn't want to know about it, but he's hearing the gospel. They're allowed to sing about his praises, and that's breaking generation already moving forward, because the kids aren't silent and they can preach the gospel to the father who doesn't want to know, but he will get breakthrough.
Not only the addict, their immediate family, but what we're talking about here is generational blessing that can flow when you have a life that is changed and transformed. When we talk about being restored, the big restored message goes much bigger than most of us will think about. Hey, back to the conference. It's called Beautifully Broken and Restored Conference. It's going to be on the Gold Coast at the Southport Churches of Christ. It's on Thursday, 31st of July, through to Saturday, the 2nd of August. Yes, it is going to be live streamed on Facebook. You can connect on Facebook with two ways, the Australian Anti-ICE campaign and also the organisation that is called Faith and Discipleship. You'll be able to get the details there. As I understand it, Andrea, it's free. There's no compelling people. You've got to invite people who are under an addiction. They, open to come to these things. If they're desperate to get free from their addiction, they will be wanting to go, won't they?
Well, we hope so, Neil. The thing is, when you're in the entrapment of addiction, you don't realise that you've got all this trauma going on. But family members, if you have a loved one entrapped in addiction, please come, because you'll learn you'll get some contacts, you'll learn some skills, you'll get some support. And, sometimes in early recovery, I remember I thought, I didn't have trauma. I didn't have any trauma going on while I used, and I was a mess. And as I started to unpack things, Neil, then I started to find what was underlying deep and where the trauma was. And I was able to work on those things with a bit of support from people that are specialised in this area, to be able to free myself, from that entrapment.
It's the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign, the website australianantiicecampaign.org.au. You can connect with Faith and Discipleship, the organisation that Mel founded, and you can connect with Faith and Discipleship on Facebook and other social media too. But register for that conference, be part of it, or get on the live stream. I am absolutely confident it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to be able to be introduced not only to some psychological help, but that spiritual dimension that as Christian believers we know is so absolutely wonderful and powerful. There's a hotline too that people can call if they're in desperation, 1-800-NO-TO-ICE, something to remember there too. Look, I want to thank our two guests today, Andrea Simmons, who's the CEO and founder of the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign. Mel Myors has been in the studio with us too. She's on the team organising the conference. Her organisation, Faith and Discipleship. To both of you, Andrea, thank you for sharing your heart with us once again.
Thank you so much for having us, Neil. Can I just mention, sometimes Christians, and I've seen this again and again in the industry, think, okay, Jesus has set me free, I don't need any trauma work on myself. And I've seen that come back to bite people 8-10 years later. So please do not think that, because Jesus restores the spirit, yes, and he will set you free, but we have a responsibility to look after our soul realm, which is our mind and emotions, and the stuff that goes on in the background. If we leave just a little door open for the enemy with some trauma, he can come in and steal you and steal your freedom. So please come and have a look at what we're doing and have a look at inside your own soul, because it's our responsibility to look after our body.
Wonderful insight. And to Mel Myors. Mel, thank you for sharing your heart with us today too on 2020.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.